Welcome back to r/Aholetax, where jerks get exactly what they deserve in a very satisfying way. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our awesome community, and without any further ado, let's dive into the stories. And the first one is titled, Guy calls me to his house after midnight for a repair, gets charged an extra $100. I am in HVAC where we have take-home trucks and the dreaded on-call week every so often. I was lucky enough to have it during the polar vortex a year or two ago, and that week was absolutely insane. Put in 90 hours I did. So this particular Saturday I left at 8 AM and finally finished all my calls at 1 AM. Immediately after pulling into my apartment complex parking lot, I get another call that is a half hour away. I call the guy up and ask if he wants to wait until tomorrow, and he says no, needs to be tonight. So I drove the 30 minutes out there and go in his home. It is 78 degrees Fahrenheit in there, the guy had space heaters everywhere. Then he hits me with,
I tried replacing my thermostat at 2 PM today, but it hasn't worked since.
1. It is almost 2 AM, and 2nd, he obviously doesn't need me there since it is 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 3, he knew there was a problem nearly 12 hours ago. So I pop off the thermostat panel and see his green fan wire is sticking out because he didn't tighten the screw down.
Well, that could be a problem,
she says. So I am writing up the ticket in his kitchen and was going to charge the regular $150-ish. Then he says,
you know, you could have come out tomorrow, but since you are 24/7, I figured might as well be tonight.
Well, $250 later and I am heading home. And the next one is titled, Coercive Rude Condescending Dickbag Taxes Himself into an Expensive Corner. My company has been around for a long time and has a bunch of different software products and long-time clients. One client got a new IT guy that convinced them to go with another vendor. It ended up being disastrous and they came clamoring back at the end of their 3-year contract with another vendor. Our software had progressed greatly in that time and would no longer run on their old equipment. And part of the negotiations for them coming back to us was that we would move their data to an upgraded environment when they bought new equipment, normally a billable service. Due to the age of their data and the lack of updates in between, their update to the new version of the software was a largely manual and time-consuming process that is typically automated for current clients. This job lands on a guy in the tech department and immediately gets worse. Brian, the want-bag IT guy, wants us to install all the pieces, update the data, but he doesn't want to go live. He wants to do a test run first, meaning that our tech guy will have to do the entire process over again on their go-live date because they have started entering records into our system again, which contractually they shouldn't have been doing, but he instructed them to. When tech department objects to having to do free work twice, he says we should
think hard about whether we want their business.
And it is a substantial account. Company ends up agreeing, and tech services has a few awful days trying to get this environment set up. Brian has failed at basically all of his obligations and wants justification for everything we say is needed that he should have already had done. But they get it done, and then they do it again for go live day. One guy in particular ends up having to do 99% of the work and deal with Brian's wantery on our end. He and I hang out for a beer sometimes, so I got to hear the whole story that day. Brian said things to my coworker like,
"This shouldn't be that hard for competent people,"
and basically ran his mouth about how smart and untouchable he was for hours. The next day we start getting calls from users about how none of their records for the past couple years are in the system. It had not occurred to Brian, the untouchable genius, that the data from the interim system was not going to magically appear there. He calls and demands to speak with someone in our data services department as though this is our fault. The order comes to me to give an estimate, and I immediately recognize this guy as the a-hole I was told about. So I looked at the data, wrote my estimate, and then put an extra 0 at the end of it. Brian was furious as,
"That is more money than I have in my entire budget."
But they had just signed a 5-year contract with us and absolutely needed that data integrated. His department was over budget in the first month of their fiscal year. Go duck yourself, Brian. And guys, if you enjoy Aholetax and revenge stories, then please don't forget to like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, Neighbor kept threatening to tow my friend's car and file trespassing charges against them, so I took care of it for them. My friends bought their very first home not long after he and his wife graduated college. They had lived their whole married life in married housing, which basically consisted of a one-room apartment on campus. Needless to say, they were beyond excited to have their very own place and lots of room. Within the first day, only hours after moving in, the neighbor next to them started yelling and screaming at them to move their cars, and that if they did not move their cars, he would not only have them towed, but he would file trespassing charges on them for being on his property. My friends were beyond upset and didn't know what to do. They were just certain that their realtor had told them that the gravel driveway was theirs, as was the very small piece of land that connected the driveway to their home. So for the time being, they parked their cars directly in front of their house, practically on their lawn. In the meantime, the neighbor had rented a bulldozer and parked it in the spot that he claimed was his. He moved piles and piles of dirt into huge mounds, blocking off entry to the gravel driveway. Seeing as how I work for the state as a social worker, I know quite a few people at the local courthouse. I called a few people and was directed to someone that could get me a copy of a land survey that had been done on my friend's property. After pulling a few strings, I managed to get a copy of it. This is where it gets really good, almost makes me want to jump up and down again while telling this story. You see, the land survey showed that the gravel driveway and the little patch of land connecting it to my friend's house was theirs. The crazy neighbor was actually trespassing by having his rented bulldozer on their property. What makes it even better is that he had used his bulldozer to destroy their property by moving the huge mounds of dirt all over. So I told my friends and they called the police. There was no reasoning with this man. The police officer was just wonderful. He explained to the neighbor that he was trespassing and that he had to remove the bulldozer immediately, and that he was lucky because his neighbors had declined to press charges against him for destruction of their property on the condition that he repairs the driveway to its original condition so that it could be accessed by the owners. Needless to say, the neighbor hasn't caused any more problems for my friends and avoids them at all costs. And the next one is titled, Cannot clock in, too bad, F you, pay me. Decided to post this one since was encouraged. Hope it is not a boring one but a bit long. Having worked for CVS for 1.5 years, I did not mind the job. Part-time easy work, okay pay, helped pay off some extra debt while main job fed the family and bills paid. Background, fast forward to September, I transfer stores because moving to a new county, made sure paperwork was all in order, so start working scheduled shifts. Unfortunately, I cannot clock in or out. So I write a note, leave a copy with the manager and take a picture for CYA. Next pay period rolls around, I have over 15 hours of pay missing. I clearly remember telling the manager that I worked. Karen, the mighty supervisor, tells me that it is not their fault and you should reach out to the old manager and have them cut you a check and bill hours to their location. Shaking my head, I refuse since old manager said I am completely out of their district and store. Telling Karen that it's not my job and the management needs to fix this, she shrugs her shoulders. Well, I bite the bullet and try to work with manager, have his personal number, texted pictures with timestamp of days worked and agreed upon days. He is conveniently not responding. October rolls around and they are pushing the BS subscription things to people. I flat out told my Karen I'm not a salesperson and I'm not going to push this down someone's throat. She says,
Well, you have to, otherwise you will be written up.
I flat out refuse because I didn't sign up for it and hate pushing something on someone who barely can afford rent and food. Top it off, my other manager said I was not even in their systems anymore to do some upside down billing paycheck hours. Barely 45 minutes into my shift, Karen tried to get one of her minions to hover over me and tell customers to sell the garbage. I decide this barely above minimum wage job is not worth it, literally say F it, I am out. I quit. Karen has a stunned deer in the headlights look asking why. I tell her I'm not selling this crap to customers and it is bullcrap. She walks into the office with the manager coming out. I tear a piece of photo envelope off and write "I quit" effective immediately. Ironically, when I said I quit, a customer said congratulations and we walked out at the same time, fist bumping. Told the customer I was tired of this BS and quit ironically on my birthday. Fast forward 1 month, manager cuts off all communication and Karen and her minions blow me off when I ask for manager at the store. Corporate HR was dragging their feet, telling me they have to investigate to provide proof I worked, but most likely won't get paid. Cue the DOL, I file a wage theft complaint, and within 2 weeks corporate HR is blowing up my phone, leaving messages asking me to return their calls. Turns out the DOL can move fast when wage theft is involved. Regional manager gets involved and says make it happen. They end up paying the maximum penalty for late paycheck at 30 days to the tune of over $2,000, which is 30 times my daily rate. Found out later that the new manager and district manager were torn new ones by corporate and regional for crapping the bed on this. And Karen got disciplined for her attitude. Nothing felt more sweet than seeing that paycheck overnighted in the mail with my name from corporate. That was a good Christmas. And the next one is titled "Start requiring an annual bureaucratic reauthorization for a $400 per year medication I have taken for years? Delay my refills? Make me hassle my doctor? Let's go for the $780 per month medication, A-holds. I have a lifelong incurable neurological condition that requires daily medication. It sucks, everybody involved wishes that I didn't have it, especially me. I had been taking one generic medication for years. It costs about $400 per year. It works well enough to keep with it and not bad enough to be bothered to change it. It could be better, but building a tolerance to a medication negates another treatment option. In order to better serve my changing health needs, because our bodies are dynamic and my doctor doesn't know what the F he is doing, scratch that, we want to save a buck at your expense, so now we require annual prior reauthorization for your medication. Despite my early efforts, my renewal is not approved on time. My request was cancelled, it could not be reopened and only my doctor could open a new one. My refill is delayed because finger pointing between my family doctor and insurance, unreliable fax machines are involved in the year 2020. My complaints fell on deaf ears. Dear insurance policy makers, I know I cannot win, but I can make us both lose. Aholetax. 2 specialist rate neurologist visits after not seeing a neurologist for 6 years. Additional tests to ensure that sleep apnea has not gotten involved, which was the neurologist's idea, not mine. And also an upgrade from a $400 per year to a $9,000 per year medication that has a $9 per month co-pay. This resulted in higher costs to my insurer before I even got the prescription. My pharmacy receipt for 30 days of medication now says, your insurance saved you $784. I do feel better because the new medication works great. I am also getting something out of the annual hassle. My insurer will never associate cause and effect, so I know I am not teaching them a lesson. And the last one is titled, Sometimes the best revenges are not planned in advance. My grandfather had been a soldier, boxer, police officer and eventually became a farmer shortly after my father was born. We are from a small community in Canada where everyone knows everyone and having a person bully others just is not okay. My grandfather's farm was quite large, acres upon acres of potatoes and grain, over 5,000 laying hens and a sizable herd of pigs. But as all farmers at the time were, the local bank owned much of the farm. One year was a particularly rough year for them. Disease had spread through the pig barn and the entire herd was lost. This was devastating as it was their most valuable source of income. My grandpa had made arrangements with the bank that the grain harvest, which normally fed the pigs, would be sold to make payments on the loans to the bank. The banker was great with this. The problem arose when a new loan officer moved to the community and took over my grandpa's account. He demanded payment much earlier than what had been previously agreed. The revenge started with my grandpa inviting the banker out to the farm to discuss terms. They were walking through the completely empty pig barn. This was the type of barn where the manure from the pigs would flow out of the stalls into a trough down to the end of the barn, filling a massive pit. Because of all of the recent rain in the area and the lack of use of the barn, the water had filled this pit and a nice layer of straw dust had settled over the entire thing. This caused two things. First, the concrete walkways were only raised about an inch over the manure-filled water, and secondly, unless you knew where you were going or looking down intently, it was easy to step off of said walkway. Well, the meeting was not going well. They were walking through the barn to the end of the row, and my grandpa was not too pleased. They were walking with the banker in front, my grandpa behind him, and my father taking up the rear. As they came to the end of the row, the deep pit of manure was in front of them. My father saw that the banker was about to walk straight off of the path, so he reached out to grab the banker, when out of nowhere my grandpa slapped his hand back and watched as the banker stepped off of the end in his suit and right up to his neck in pig manure. They grabbed a rope to help the poor guy out, but wouldn't let him in the house to wash off at all. He ended up hosing himself off in the barnyard and driving back to town, smelling like $1,000,000. Needless to say, the grain harvest came in a few weeks later, and as originally agreed on, my grandpa made the payments. And guys, as we always say when it comes to Reddit stories, never try to mess with a farmer. In my opinion, guys, these people are the kings of revenge. And ripe stars, unfortunately we have already reached the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content. However, if you cannot wait for more ripe content, then I suggest you head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where you can find more exclusive Reddit content read by me. Patreon subscriptions start at just $1 per month, and for $1 your name will show up at the end of each of my new videos. However, if you are willing to spend $3 per month, you will get access to more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos, mostly just no mother-in-law stories. However, please understand, I don't want to pressure anyone into spending money, because I am already incredibly grateful that you watch my videos every single day. Thank you so much for your daily support, it really means the world to me, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for the next video.